History is bonkers. Absolutely bananas. Why, you ask? Because it's humanity, and humanity is nothing if not unpredictable, quirky, and downright wild. In today's video, we're revisiting one of our very first uploads, 25 absurd and random history facts. Why the return to this chaotic topic? Well, thanks to the incredible support of our viewers, our creative motivation has been reignited, and we're ready to dive headfirst into the strange and baffling world of historical oddities. Today we'll be exploring some of the most unbelievable, absurd, and frankly head-scratching facts from the depths of human history. A quick heads up. History is messy, and sources often conflict, meaning some of these facts come with a bit of ambiguity. But rest assured, we've done our best to present the most accurate version of events we could find. These facts might be silly, funny, dark, bizarre, or just downright unbelievable. Others might sound a little more tame at first, but make absolutely no sense when you stop to think about them. That's the beauty of history. It's a lucky dip of surprises, and I'm here to sprinkle a bit of chaos into your day as I deliver these strange and fascinating tidbits. So without further ado, let's jump into 25 absurd and random history facts, Part 2. Number 1. The curious case of Benjamin Franklin's basement. At the end of 1997, during renovations of Benjamin Franklin's former home in London, a shocking discovery was made in the basement. Over 1,200 bone fragments from approximately 10 to 15 human bodies were found, some of which were from children. But before you start picturing Franklin as a secret serial killer, experts believe these bones were used for anatomical study by one of Franklin's protégés, Dr. William Hewson, who ran an anatomy school out of the house. Hewson's students likely conducted dissections in the basement, as anatomy lessons back then often required cadavers, and Franklin, ever the scientist, likely allowed it. Still, it begs the question, why keep the bodies there for so long? Definitely one of history's stranger mysteries. Number 2. Murderous Mary, the elephant execution. In 1916, a 5-ton Asian elephant named Mary, performing with the Sparks world-famous circus, killed her keeper, Red Eldridge, in Kingsport, Tennessee. Eldridge, a homeless man, had only been on the job for 2 days when Mary trampled him after he struck her with a hook. This tragic incident led to Mary being executed by hanging in the nearby town of Irwin, Tennessee. A spectacle that would go down as one of the most bizarre and disturbing moments in circus history. The execution was carried out using a rail-mounted industrial crane, and though the authenticity of the infamous photo is debated, the event itself remains a dark chapter in the history of animal rights and circus entertainment. Number 3. Stalin, the poet who became a dictator. Before he became the ruthless dictator and leader of the Soviet Union, Joseph Stalin had a softer, more artistic side. In his youth, he was a promising poet, writing under the pseudonym Socello. He penned 6 poems in total, and his work was even published in Georgian newspapers. Of course, we know Stalin would later exchange poetry for politics, but his appreciation for the arts apparently never left him. Oddly enough, Stalin was also known for having an uncanny skill with editing photos, a useful talent in his later years, when historical revisionism under his regime often meant that people were literally erased from photographs. Even though Photoshop wasn't a thing back then, Stalin would have been quite the pro. Number 4. Juliana the bomb-sniffing and peeing dog. During World War II, a Great Dane named Juliana was awarded 2 Blue Cross medals for bravery. Her most famous act? Extinguishing an incendiary bomb by peeing on it during the Blitz in 1941. Talk about being in the right place at the right time. Later, Juliana would also save her family from a fire in their shoe shop. Despite her heroism, she met a sad end when she was poisoned in 1946, though her legacy as a war hero lives on. The image of a dog casually urinating on a bomb and saving lives in the process is one of those absurd but heartwarming moments that remind us of the unexpected heroes of history. Number 5. Burlap fashion, the Great Depression's unexpected trend. During the Great Depression, when money was tight and resources scarce, people got creative. Burlap sacks, often used to store foodstuffs like flour and potatoes, became a popular material for making clothing. Recognizing this trend, food distributors began adding colorful designs and prints to their packaging, not only to make the sacks more visually appealing but also to boost sales. It was a win-win. Families got fabric for free, and the companies got some extra promotion. The result? A fashion movement born out of necessity that saw people walking around in burlap dresses and suits, proving once again that tough times bring out the creativity in humanity. Number 6. Oxford, older than the Aztec Empire. Here's a mind-blowing time comparison. The University of Oxford was founded in 1096, making it one of the oldest universities in the world. Meanwhile, the Aztec Empire didn't rise to prominence until the early 14th century. That means Oxford was already around for over 2 centuries before the Aztecs started building their famous pyramids in what is now Mexico. It's one of those historical facts that really puts time into perspective. Number 7. Vodka shortage in the Soviet Union. After the end of World War II, victory celebrations erupted across the Soviet Union. In true Russian fashion, these festivities involved a lot of vodka. So much vodka, in fact, that the entire country's supply was depleted within just 24 hours. It's worth noting that grain shortages caused by the war likely contributed to the quick depletion, but still, for an entire nation to run out of its most iconic drink that fast. Now that's impressive, or concerning depending on how you look at it. Number 8. The Whiskey War, a friendly conflict. Since 1978, Canada and Denmark had been in a light-hearted war over Hans Island, a small uninhabited rock located between Greenland and Canada. The so-called Whiskey War involved the two nations periodically visiting the island, leaving behind bottles of whiskey, or schnapps in Denmark's case, and planting their respective flags. This tradition went on for decades until 2022, when the two countries finally agreed to peacefully split the island. So, while it wasn't exactly a war in the traditional sense, it was probably the friendliest conflict in history, with the only casualties being the bottles left behind. Number 9. The Titanic, not actually called unsinkable. Contrary to popular belief, the Titanic wasn't officially described as unsinkable until after the ship tragically sank in 1912. White Star Line, the company behind the Titanic, had simply stated that the ship was designed to be unsinkable as far as it was possible to do so. The media and public ran with this statement, creating the myth of the unsinkable ship. Today, that misrepresentation adds a layer of tragic irony to the Titanic's story. Number 10. Roman mouthwash, the power of urine. It may sound gross, but the ancient Romans used stale urine as a mouthwash, and they loved it so much that Emperor Nero eventually imposed a tax on the trade of bottled urine. Urine's ammonia content made it an effective cleaning agent, but it wasn't until the 18th century that society finally moved on to less, shall we say, pungent methods of oral hygiene. Number 11. The miniature train that took down German planes. The Romney, Hythe, and Dymchurch Railway in the UK was the brainchild of two enthusiastic race car drivers, Captain John Edwards Presgrave Howe and Count Louis Zaborowski. It featured tiny trains that passengers could actually board, and during World War II, the British Army commandeered it. Incredibly, a miniature armored train equipped with anti-aircraft guns ran along the line and even managed to shoot down a handful of German planes. Talk about David versus Goliath. Number 12. The Soviet Union's Genghis Khan ban. In the 20th century, the Soviet Union outright banned the mention of Genghis Khan. Stalin's regime in particular saw the Mongol leader as a symbol of feudal oppression and backwardness, so the Soviet government tried to erase him from the public consciousness. It wasn't until after the fall of the Soviet Union that Genghis Khan's legacy was rehabilitated in Mongolia and parts of Russia. Number 13. The 335 Years' War. The longest war in history technically lasted 335 years, between the Netherlands and the Isles of Scilly, located off the southwest coast of England. The war began in 1651 after the English Civil War, but in all that time, no actual battles took place, and no casualties were recorded. The conflict ended in 1986 with a peace treaty, marking one of the most uneventful wars ever fought. Number 14. Alexander the Great's legacy of Alexandria. Alexander the Great was known for founding cities, and he had a habit of naming them after himself. By the time of his death, there were more than 20 cities named Alexandria scattered throughout his empire, from Egypt to modern-day Afghanistan. Today, the most famous of these is Alexandria, Egypt, home to the legendary Library of Alexandria, which sadly no longer exists. Number 15. Normandy's shrapnel sands. Even decades after the D-Day landings of 1944, the beaches of Normandy still bear the marks of war. Around 4% of the sand on these beaches consists of shrapnel and fragments from the massive military invasion. Over time, this shrapnel has slowly been eroded and integrated into the beach, making it a lasting, if somber, reminder of one of World War II's most pivotal events. Number 16. Tea lockboxes in Georgian England. In 18th century England, tea was a luxury item, and the upper classes went to great lengths to protect their precious leaves. Wealthy households often had special lockboxes designed to keep tea safe from thieves, or even from servants who might be tempted to sneak a few spoonfuls. Tea was such a status symbol that it even led to the rise of tea smuggling, as the British government heavily taxed imports of the drink. Number 17. The Wehrmacht's drug of choice, Pervitin. During World War II, German soldiers were often fueled by a drug called Pervitin, which contained methamphetamine. This miracle pill gave troops a burst of energy and alertness, allowing them to stay awake and active for days at a time. However, the side effects were severe, leading to addiction, health problems, and mental instability. Pervitin is considered one of the first forms of what we now call crystal meth. Number 18. Liberty Stakes, American patriotism. During World War II, Americans briefly renamed hamburgers Liberty Steaks as a patriotic move to distance themselves from anything that sounded too German. The same happened during World War I when sauerkraut was rebranded as Liberty Cabbage. It didn't last long, but it shows how wartime nationalism could even impact everyday food. Number 19. British tanks and tea, a match made in heaven. Tea is so deeply ingrained in British culture that, since World War II, British tanks have been equipped with tea-making facilities. Officially known as the boiling vessel, this device allows soldiers to brew a cup of tea on the battlefield, ensuring that morale stays high no matter the circumstances. It's one of those quintessentially British innovations that's both practical and charming. Number 20. The marathon cheat at the 1904 Olympics at the 1904 Summer Olympics in St. Louis. American marathon runner Frederick Lors took a rather creative shortcut. After running 9 miles, Lors hitched a ride in a car for about 11 miles before jumping out and jogging to the finish line. He was initially declared the winner, but when his deception was discovered, he was disqualified. Amazingly, Lors's ban was later lifted, and he went on to win the Boston Marathon fair and square. Number 21. Hans Scharf, the friendly interrogator. Hans Joachim Gottlob Scharf was a German Luftwaffe interrogator during World War II, known for his unconventional and humane methods of extracting information from prisoners of war. Instead of using violence, Scharf would take prisoners on walks, offer them homemade food, and engage them in friendly conversation. His techniques were so effective that many POWs unknowingly gave up valuable intelligence simply because they felt comfortable around him. After the war, Scharf's methods were studied by the US military, and he went on to become a successful mosaic artist in America. Number 22. Gandhi and Jack the Ripper in the same city. In 1888, Mahatma Gandhi was a young law student in London. At the same time, the notorious serial killer Jack the Ripper was terrorizing the city. While Gandhi had nothing to do with the infamous murders, it's surreal to think that the future leader of India and the unidentified Ripper were in the same city at the same time, living parallel lives that couldn't have been more different. Number 23. No armor in Parliament, an ancient law still in place. In 1313, King Edward II of England passed a law banning the wearing of armor in Parliament. This law was meant to prevent knights from intimidating or threatening other members during heated debates. While it made sense in the medieval period, the law still technically stands today, though you're unlikely to see any modern MPs donning chainmail and helmets during a session. Number 24. Suspicious fish. Handling. A British law that still exists. Section 23 of the UK's Salmon Act, 1986, makes it illegal to handle a salmon in suspicious circumstances. While the law was intended to prevent illegal fishing and poaching, its phrasing has led to a lot of jokes about what exactly constitutes suspicious fish handling. So if you're in the UK, be careful with how you carry your salmon, or you might be breaking the law. Number 25. The English kings who didn't speak English. From 1066, when William the Conqueror invaded England, to 1399, no English king spoke English as their first language. Following the Norman conquest, French became the language of the court, and it wasn't until Henry IV took the throne in 1399 that an English king spoke the language natively. For over 3 centuries, the rulers of England were, quite literally, speaking a foreign tongue to their subjects. And there you have it, 25 absurd and random history facts. Part 2. Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe for more wild history content, and hit that notification bell so you never miss an upload. A huge shout out to Vlogging Through History for their support, and the amazing reaction video to Part 1. It's truly appreciated and has helped the channel grow more than we could have imagined. Let us know in the comments which random history fact was your favorite, and feel free to share any other bizarre bits of history that you'd like to see in a future video. Take care, and we'll see you next time with more weird, wonderful, and wacky tales from the past. Goodbye.